I suspected they had a problem with the engine, but after his debrief, it sounds like it's front end. I knew there was a problem, wasn't sure what. And he's the one I would read something into his move up the screen, you know, the timing screen, because he's clearly feeling more comfortable. This is his first real step up, you know, this test. But on the other side of the garage, Mark has fired it down the road once yesterday, I think, once on the first day, twice, I think, tonight. And one of them, the bike looked a right mess. It looked like it had like a funnel, like off a ship heading straight up. The exhaust came up through the seat and pointing up in the air. The thing I'd read into Mark doing that is he's feeling good. He's pushing the limit. That's Mark, you know, he's trying to, he's testing. Yeah, so apart from all of that, I would say, again, don't read too much into the timing screen. The Ducatis are further up than it looks like they are, the factory boys, and so are the Suzuki, you know, of Rins. Yeah, that's where I would say, what I would say at the moment.
Simon, before we come back to you, another couple of questions. We saw some footage of all that wind that was kicking up in the desert earlier on today, and that's resulted in quite a few crashes tonight. There's a picture of Marc Marquez on the deck. But that was at turn 6, inadvertently trying out that new penalty loop when he went down earlier on. A lot of carbon carnage going on in Qatar in those tricky conditions. Like, before we come back to you, Sam, just quickly, Zarco turn 2, Crutchlow thought that all of the riders are perfectly okay, but quite clearly we can see from this footage grabbed by our guys over in Qatar, there's been quite a lot of broken bodywork and broken bikes over in the desert.
Some guys talking to a few, like Mayo Marigali, just before I came on here, and he said no, it's wind that the riders are complaining about. Both Valentino and Maverick said as they accelerate with a bit of a side wind, the front moves across the track, and then when it touches down, the bike's a bit crossed up and it tries to fire them off, you know, big head shake. And I think between getting the shoves in the side by the wind and that head shaking, that's what's causing the crashes. The Yamahas, you know, like you said, there's 3 up there, and I think it's the top 4 last I looked. Well, it again shows how it's a nice bike to ride, you know. It's a bit more forgiving. But looking at the time screen, I'm going to say this a few times tonight, it is not what I think would happen if that wind wasn't there. Because there's a few riders out there being sensible, namely the Ducati guys. They did their race run, but they haven't done a time attack, you know. They've gone out and done a long run together like they did in Sepang. One led for 10 laps, the other, that was the plan anyway. I saw them doing a lot of laps together, but their plan was to have 10 laps in front each, like they did in Sepang. I think there's at least 4 guys that I would say would be in front of him right now if the conditions were where, you know, everyone would have a time attack like they did last night, you know, and like they did in Sepang. So to repeat, Jorge is moving up, you know, he's getting more comfy on the bike. But I think there's a few guys that would be in front of him, you know, if the conditions were ideal. Honda, I know we're going to see Mark up there, you know, when Marquez, he's incredible. So when the lights turn green, he's one of those guys like we've seen in the past, Kevin Schwantz, that can ride around Hassel. On previous tests, but also end of last year, Ducati are there, you know, they're just, I think, here we see them on screen doing their long run that I spoke about earlier. Dovizioso he's old enough, wise enough, experienced enough, and I would say self-confident enough to not have to go out, do that time attack, risk his body at the last test when there's no prize here. He's gone out and focused on long distance. That's what I think. Where it's actually quite hard to do that confidence-wise, as you'll know, Randy, is not go out and post one, unless he does it soon and proves me wrong. But it's hard to do that, walk away from a test so far down. But like I said, he's confident enough to know that they're there. There's no point risking your hand or some injury going into the beginning of the season.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Actually, just before we quickly came on air, we did get some information about some of the longer runs that did take place tonight. Danilo Petrucci, 21 laps, just one shy of full race distance. Aleix Espargo did a full distance of 22 laps. Dovizioso 16 laps, Mia 17 laps, and Fabio Quartararo and Jack Miller both did 14 laps, so about 2/3 race distance. Of course, we'll keep you fully updated with who exactly did those full race simulations a little bit later on in the show.
We are still in disadvantage compared to the best bike. So we try something more, but unfortunately it doesn't work. But I hope with all my heart that I'm wrong and Maverick is right.
Yeah, now I must, from the horse's mouth, right now we are not strong enough to win. Do you believe him?
You know, when he said last night, which was probably really important, but he also has that option of taking a look at what Quartararo did and or Maverick on those short, long runs, whether it was with a soft tire or not. We know that the soft tire works with Yamaha. We know that it helps it to turn. It always needs that extra grip to make the
have to improve.
In terms of race pace, how confident are you?
It's not bad. Now, just a few minutes ago, I tried 10 laps just to understand the bike, who was going, but now it was very cold for the medium tires. But anyway, I rode quite good, on good rhythm, and I could maybe push a little more. But anyway, still there remain the acceleration. We have no grip on the edge, and I think it's very important that we improve for the race.
Do you think that you are ready to fight for the victory in 2 weeks' time?
And the other three Yamahas in the top 4 there, that's something really to shout about.
Yeah, well, this is that new streamlined rear seat unit which we saw Maverick Vinales trying over in Qatar last night. Tonight it was the turn of Valentino Rossi just to put that seat through its paces. Yamaha looking for any kind of top speed advantage that they can get, try and make that M1 a little bit more aerodynamic. So that streamlined, narrower, very aggressive looking tail unit, that's just basically...
Can you tell us where it is that you've improved in those requests?
We improve a little bit on the braking stability. We improve a little bit on our top speed, a little bit on electronic area.
Who do you think your biggest rivals will be coming into Qatar race? Because tonight it's difficult to read into the times, you know, with these conditions.
Yeah, you know, it's difficult for sure. For sure, everybody will be on the top.
Making suspension settings or whatever, but what's going on, because don't forget, these guys, although they're in the same garage with Maverick and or the Petronas team, they're able to how the bikes work, how the electronics are working, what packages that they're running compared to what Valentino is. He puts it together and he had a good night, and that's good to see.
Well, we've talked about Yamaha. We'll stay in Japanese territory because we'll move on nicely now to Honda. This is the reigning world champion, Marc Marquez, out on track, beginning or preparing for the defence of his title 5 times in just 6 years. As a MotoGP rider, Marc Marquez has won the championship, and he's joined this year. It's already been billed and badged as the dream team. Jorge Lorenzo coming into Repsol Honda to partner Marc Marquez. A bit of a mixed bag, I think it's fair to say, this week, Randy, from HRC. Marc Marquez struggling a little bit with setup on the first day. A couple of crashes, happy to report with that recovering left shoulder, he's okay. Lorenzo clearly on a soft tire today found some rhythm. Cal Crutchlow, he's had a real tough test, still not 100% fit after that Phillip Island crash last year. Some issues with his bike, a lot of issues with the setup. It's a bit hard to judge exactly what the potential and the level of the Honda is going into the race in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it?
Valentino said it, you know, Marquez, you can't count him out, and everybody knows that. Just saw in that, looking at that little bit of footage that we saw of Marc dragging his elbow on the right-handers, that's for sure. You know that he crashed on turn 6, which was a left-hander. You can see that he was, when in the crash, you'll see all the sparks going in that corner. He was holding his shoulder like he does with his arms crossed. But you know, he's one of those riders that pushes the limit. Jorge is just in waiting. I think when he becomes more physical.
Marquez said he'll be back. He is back, and that's an ominous